I'm still loving it so freaking much.
Yikes.
Look at this. This has been such a delight so far. Hey, my name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be starting on another exciting reading vlog. This is going to be round 2 of reading Reese Witherspoon's book club picks for the year of 2024. So if you missed it earlier this year in the month of April, I posted the first round of reading her first 4 book club picks for the first 4 months of the year. So if you missed the first round of this vlog series, I will have the first video linked down below, but you might recall that it didn't end up going very well for me because the pick that she had in January was First Lie Wins, which I ended up giving it 2 stars. Redwood Court, I ended up giving like 2 stars, maybe 2.5 stars. I DNF'd Anita DeMonte Laughs Last, but then I had a 5-star with The Most Fun We Ever Had. And The Most Fun We Ever Had ended up being like one of my favorite books that I've read this year. And so I was kind of like nervous and thinking like, do I really want to do another round of like reading more of her books since so many of them were such flops for me? And I told myself that I wouldn't do another round of this unless there were some books coming up that she picked that I was actually really excited about. And then of course, we ended up getting some picks that I am really excited about. And just to give you a refresher on like why I'm doing this in the first place is because I have enjoyed some of Reese's picks in the past. I feel like Reese Witherspoon, she's really well known for picking books that center around women and like females' stories, which is something that I do really appreciate about her and her book choices. These are some of her book club selections that she's had in the past that I have really enjoyed. Like some of these I do consider to be some of like my all-time favorite books, you know, like they were really great books. And then this is another look at some of the books that she's picked over the years that I personally did not enjoy, or I DNF'd, or like they were just not the books for me. So her book club in the past has definitely been very hit or miss for me, but I'm always willing to give her books a shot. And this is like the first year I'm ever trying to take on reading all 12 of her books throughout the year. But in this video, I'm going to be reading her picks from the months of May, June, July, and August. And then hopefully, if everything goes to plan, there should be the 3rd episode of this series coming out in December where I read the last 4 picks of this year. So her pick for the month of May is the book How to End a Love Story, which this is a romance book that I've actually been so excited to read. I already had my hands on this and I'm so glad I actually waited to read this because I was going to end up reading this like way earlier in the year when it published, because this one came out in April and I had my hands on this book in April and I was like debating reading it then. And then when Reese announced it for the May book club pick, I was like, oh my god, how perfect, because I already owned it and it was something I was already really excited to read. I didn't really know too much about this romance either when I jumped into it. All I did know is that we follow these 2 characters who are both writers, which reading about writers and romance is something that I already like really enjoy, and that's why I was really excited to read this one anyway. And then for the month of June, she announced that The Unwedding by Ali Condi was her June pick. Also so excited because this is a thriller that I've been eagerly anticipating. Like I actually included this book on my most anticipated books of the year because this is like a thriller that involves a wedding. It takes place in California. It just sounds so interesting and it checked so many boxes for things that usually intrigue me with thrillers. And I thought, you know, maybe because the last thriller that she chose for the book club, First Lie Wins, like maybe that one didn't work for me, but maybe this one will. And so after she announced that this one was going to be the June pick, I had pretty much already decided from that moment, like, okay, I'm going to be doing this next round of Reese Witherspoon's book club picks because like what are the chances she would pick 2 books back to back that I was already interested in. And then for her July book club pick, she has this book called The Cliffs by J. Courtney Sullivan. And not only is this a book and an author that I've never personally heard of before, but this is also a book that I don't know if I personally would pick up this book outside of like, you know, reading it for Reese Witherspoon's book club, like for this video. Because this one, from what I understand from reading the premise of this, it's more of like a historical fiction, kind of like literary fiction, contemporary fiction type of story. I think most of it does take place in Maine, which is pretty cool. Like that is definitely something that intrigues me. But this is one that I was able to get my hands on the audiobook from my library to read for this video. And then most recently, she just announced that her August book club pick is Slow Dance by Rowell. Dude, I can't even tell you how excited it made me to find out that this was her August book club pick. Like, are you freaking kidding me? And it was so perfectly timed too, because I had actually pre-ordered this book and like ordered it before I even knew that it was going to be a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, because Rowell is like one of my top favorites. Like you might not know this about me, but Fangirl is like my most reread book of all time. Like Fangirl is like one of my top favorite books that I connect with, and Rowell has just always been like a favorite author of mine, and it's been a long time since she's published anything like this. And so this was by far easily one of my most anticipated books of the year. Like I was gonna be reading this in the month of August no matter what. So like the fact that she actually chose this, I was so excited for this to be a book club pick. So I cannot wait to be reading the new Rowell for today's video. So yeah, these are the 4 books that I'm gonna be reading for today's reading vlog. Hopefully this round of reading Reese Witherspoon's book club picks ends up going better than the last time. I have faith. I have hope. I feel like with these 4 picks, they are a lot more up my alley with what I tend to like in books compared to the last 4 picks, so I'm hoping that means my odds of enjoying them are a little bit better. But before we do jump into the reading vlog, I just wanted to take a minute to thank today's video sponsor, which is Factor, because Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals right to your doorstep. They have a team of gourmet chefs who make every meal using only ingredients with integrity so that you can be feeling your best all day long. I know for me, I'm not the kind of person that enjoys grocery shopping and meal prepping and thinking all the time about what am I gonna eat for dinner. Like, I think it's kind of a stressful thing sometimes, and I love that Factor makes it so easy. Like, I never have to worry about it. I love that with Factor it saves me so much time, not just when it comes to grocery shopping, but also like the meal prepping and the cooking of the meal, because I don't have to spend time doing those things because the meal has already been prepared for me. So I just have to throw it in the microwave for about 2 minutes, or I can throw it in the oven for a few more minutes, and then I have a really nutritious meal ready to go. And I also don't have to worry about the cleanup. It is just such a huge time saver, especially for somebody like me that's always on the go, or if I'm working from home, it's very convenient to just throw it in for lunch. You can choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, so there really is something for everyone. And their menus include popular options for keto, calorie smart, vegetarian options, some protein plus options, and so much more. So you can skip the overpriced takeout trap, because Factor is cheaper and way more delicious. I mean, the fact that their food is as nutritious as it is and it's just ready within 2 minutes is such a game changer for me. So you can head to factor75.com or use the link in my description and use my code gabbyreads50 to get 50% off your first box from Factor and 20% off your next month's order. That's code gabbyreads50 at factor75.com for 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month's order. That's incredible. That's such a good deal. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get into the reading vlog.
Young speeding 91, drunk driving, losing all intention, falling. Once I was living for the passion, now it's all missing without you.
Okay, hello. I wanted to update you because I have started on the first book for this reading vlog, which is How to End a Love Story. I'm currently down south right now visiting my friend Brittany, and yesterday on the drive down here, I had about like an hour and a half of a drive, and so I got about 33% of the way into this book. I actually didn't even check page count wise because I've been listening to this on audio, so I didn't check how far that puts me into the story, but this one is interesting so far, to say the least. I don't know, I'm a little bit shocked. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit shocked at what the premise of this book is about, because, you know, on the inside story here, it says that we're following this character named Helen, and it says that she hasn't seen Grant once in 13 years since the tragic accident that bound their lives together forever. And so I was like, okay, like, what is it? Like, what is this accident? Like, what has happened between them? I don't think it's a spoiler to say what the accident is that happened between them, but like, because you do learn about the accident like pretty early on in the story. But I've got to say that I am like shocked, and I don't know how to feel about this, because I'm like, this thing that ties them together is just so awful. And like, I'm all for a good, you know, enemies to lovers romance, but like in this case, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, am I supposed to be rooting for this relationship? Like, I don't know, it's just a little bit odd to me. What intrigued me about this book initially was the fact that we were going to be following like 2 characters who are both writers, and they're both like screenwriters. It does say that Helen is a best-selling author, and now she's like working in the writer's room for adapting some of her books into like movies and TV shows and like things like that. And she's also only been writing young adult novels because she doesn't want her parents to like read anything that's like more intense from her. So she's been writing a lot of novels that are for young adults. And then at the start of this story, she's working on another one of her like film adaptations when Grant, this guy, gets hired onto like the help of the show. Like, I think he's like another one of the writers. I'm not entirely sure what he's doing there. And then of course, like, her immediate thought is like, oh my god, no, like, not this guy, anybody but this guy. And so at first you're kind of like, why do they have this history between them? Like, what's going on between them? You don't really know. But then very quickly we do find out, like almost right away, like what actually happened between these 2 in the past. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not to say, like, I really don't know. But if you don't want to know like anything about like these 2 in their past and like how they know each other, then just skip ahead a little bit. But I'm just kind of shocked that this is how they know each other, because I'm like, I don't know if I can root for something like this. Like, this is so awful and like so awkward. But basically, like, her sister had died in this situation where she basically like threw herself in front of a car. So like, she was basically trying to kill herself, is like my guess. Like, she was trying to do that, but then she threw herself in front of his car. So like, technically he was the one to kill her. He was the one to like kill her sister accidentally. And I just think that's such a weird and like thing that connects them, because I'm like, oh my god, like, that is so vulgar and like sad and just like terrible. because like it was obviously an accident because he just happened to be the one driving. But it's like weird to me because Helen, in like her perspective, she literally blames him. She's like, this guy murdered my sister. Like, she keeps saying that. And I'm like, I mean, you do realize that she was trying to take her own life though, right? Like, it wasn't really his fault, but he just happened to be the one driving. And this whole storyline is introduced like pretty much right at the beginning, because I'm only 30% of the way into the book. And I want to say that that was revealed around like the 10% mark. Like, it was revealed pretty early on, but I'm just still kind of like shocked, and I'm kind of like, damn, like that's really sad and really unfortunate. And the way that she views him in that way, then I'm like, how could I ever root for a romance where you think that this guy is like responsible for like murdering your sister? Like, I don't know, I'm just like, damn. So I think it's safe to say that I'm not like obsessed with this one so far. I'm just kind of like trying to figure out how I feel. I don't know, I'm not really connecting with either of them as characters, and I'm not really like connecting with their banter or the romance either. I feel like there's been a few scenes actually where they've already had this kind of like awkward banter or like back and forth in the office, like in front of their peers, and it's just kind of like made me uncomfortable so far. Like, I don't know how I'm feeling about it, but I am going to continue listening to this on the way home today. I have about an hour and a half drive home, so like, I don't know, maybe we'll see if things improve. I think I might try to finish this one today if I decide to finish it, because I don't know, dude, at this point I'm kind of like, yikes, like I don't know if I'm vibing with this at all.
Losing all intention, falling. Once I was living for the passion, now it's all missing. Yeah, 새벽 2시 하늘께까지 telling me that you Gucci. 너답지 않지, got me driving like a movie.
Hello, I am back home. Luckily there was not too much traffic on the way home, which was really nice. And for the last hour or so since I've gotten home, I've just been laying in bed finishing How to End a Love Story. And I've gotta say, you know, I'm surprised with myself that I was able to finish this, because I was really not having a good time with this. And I'm really surprised, you know, because when I opened my Goodreads and I was looking through a lot of my friends' Goodreads reviews, it feels like a lot of people have rated this like 5 stars. It seems like a lot of people are really loving this and really connecting with it. And like, I'm so happy for them, because I really wish that I had felt the same way, but I don't know. For me, like, this was a struggle to even finish this book. I'm probably gonna give this like 2 stars. And I just really didn't like this book, not only because I personally struggled to connect with the characters like at all, but I also feel like the tone of this book was just all over the place. Like I was saying at the beginning, there's this tragedy that connects these 2 characters, right? And it has to do with the death of her sister. This book is very heavy and emotional, especially at the beginning, you know, as she's like talking about the grief that she has for like her sibling who she's lost. There's also a lot of talk in this book about, you know, things like suicide and things like anxiety and like panic attacks and like all kinds of things like that I do think make this book feel a lot more heavy than I was anticipating. I was like, damn, this is like some serious shit, you know? But then very quickly, I feel like the tone of this book just like completely changes, and it almost like made me uncomfortable, because I was like, oh my god, why are we going from like this heavy sadness to almost this like playful kind of like sexy thing between them? I don't know, it was so odd to me the way that the tone of this book just kept changing between like really sad and heavy and really emotional, and then it would just go into like, you know, these like sex scenes like constantly. I feel like the last time that I updated you, I was only at like the 30% mark, so I was probably only around like 100, maybe 150 pages in, and shortly after that, I feel like this book just becomes nothing but like sex scene after sex scene after sex scene after sex scene. I was literally like skipping ahead listening to the audiobook because I was like, oh my god, here we go, they're going at it again. I just personally, I get so bored when books do this, where they just like, the plot just doesn't move at all. Like, there's nothing happening in the plot of the story, but it's just these characters having sex over and over again. Like, I could care less. But I think I was also like not invested in the sex scenes just because like I didn't really like or care about either of them as characters anyway. And I was still experiencing such like whiplash from like the heavy tone of this book at the beginning. I don't know, like there were some things that I did like about this though, which is the reason why I'm giving this like 2 stars instead of like 1 star. This book didn't make me like angry or anything. It just made me very uncomfortable, I guess. But I also like, I really did like the setting of like how most of this book does take place in Los Angeles. I thought it was very nice that it was all in California. I like the scenes where they're like in the writer's room together, and I love the fact that we're following 2 characters who are writers. I just found that to be very interesting. I usually do love that in books. Like, I love any kind of books that follow writers. Like, that's something I always kind of seek out, I guess, in books. And even though it was really hard to read about, I was really fascinated by the main character Helen and like her family dynamics. Because her sister had died, you know, there is a lot of talk about like the grief that she experienced and still is experiencing, dealing with like the loss of her sister. But then she also had like a really interesting and kind of like complicated relationship with her parents too. Her relationship with her family was like really interesting, and I thought it was really fleshed out and like well done. I just didn't connect for some reason. I didn't connect with these characters. I didn't connect with the romance. Like, I was always waiting to like feel something, you know, and I just never really felt anything between them. So like, I don't know. I just wish that I had loved this the way that so many people seem to be loving this. But I personally couldn't get on board. But you know, I'm glad that I read it because this one has been sitting on my shelves since April. Like, I got this one as my book of the month pick and I've been meaning to read it ever since April. So like, I am glad that I finally got around to it, and now I know that like it's not for me, unfortunately. It just sucks though when I do these videos when like the one that I'm personally looking forward to a lot because it was already on my TBR like wasn't even a win. It just sucks because like I would have read this on my own regardless of whether or not I was doing the Reese Witherspoon book club video. So like, it just sucks that this one was not a win. Hello, how's it going? Good morning. I wanted to update you because last night I started on the Unwedding. Last night I got 78 pages in and oh my gosh, so much has been going on. I mean, I've just been watching so much of the Olympics recently. The other night I watched Simone Biles compete. Like, I watched like the women's gymnastics team, and then last night I watched the male gymnastics team for the USA. Wow, dude, our gymnastics teams are freaking killing it for the US this year. It is so much fun to watch. You want to know the devastating news though is that yesterday I went to Popeyes for dinner, you know, because Popeyes is like one of my favorite fast food places, and I ordered the chicken nuggets and then they were like, oh sorry, we're not serving chicken nuggets anymore. Devastated. They told me that they've replaced the chicken nuggets with like their boneless wings, which are totally like not the same thing. And I was just so upset, you know, because Popeyes, they literally make my favorite chicken nuggets. Like, I cannot even believe this. So if you also enjoy Popeyes and you are also surprised that a chicken place is no longer serving chicken nuggets, like what? I don't understand how that makes sense for their business. But anyways, I was really heartbroken and devastated over that last night. Back to the book. I'm 78 pages into the Unwedding and I'm kind of surprised. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of surprised that I'm actually really enjoying this so far. I only say that I'm surprised because I just checked on Goodreads and like the average rating for this thriller on Goodreads right now is like a 3.3 out of 5, which is like significantly low. And it has me wondering why, you know, because so far the setup of this has been very fun. So this story is taking place in Big Sur, California, which is so cool. The atmosphere is already really great. We're following this character named Ellery, and she actually just recently got a divorce from her husband Luke, and they've been married for like 20 years. She's basically only on this trip because her and her husband Luke, like, they were supposed to take this trip together, but since they just recently got a divorce, she doesn't want him and his new girlfriend, who's like a lot younger than her, like, she doesn't want them to like take this trip from her, so she decides to just go by herself. But then very quickly on the first night of the trip, she meets these two other travelers named Ravi and Nina, and they're both like traveling together, and they're just like these random tourists who like approach her and they're just like, hey, like, what's going on? And they ask like why she's alone. I honestly don't know right off the bat if they're like trustworthy or if they're kind of like being weird. Like, I can't really tell what the vibe is, but they tell her all these like weird things, like there's a shadow celebrity staying at the hotel, so it's like somebody that's really famous but like isn't really recognizable. And then Ravi asks her if she wants to like crash the wedding with him, and there's like a wedding that's been going on at this like resort that they're staying at. And so then we also get introduced to all of the characters at the wedding. We have Olivia, who's the bride, Ben, who's the groom, Catherine, who's the mother of the bride, Rachel, who's the bridesmaid, and then there's this guy Andy, and he's like the second best man, whatever that means. And there's just like a ton of characters that we're getting introduced to right away, which is a little bit overwhelming, but I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm not having any issues keeping all of the characters straight. Like, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. There was like a prologue at the very beginning of the book where somebody like finds a body like floating in the pool at the resort. And so like we know that somebody is dead at the beginning of the book, but we don't quite know who is dead until a little bit further in. So at this point in time, 78 pages in, I do know now who is the person who died. It's just more about trying to figure out like what exactly happened to this person. And so I'm scared for like the direction that this book could be going in, because I'm scared to find out why it has such low ratings, you know, like I don't know why yet. So maybe the second half of this book just completely drops the ball, you know, like we'll have to see. I think I do need to film one video today. I'm probably gonna try to like curl my hair because my hair is like a mess right now. So I might try to curl my hair while listening to this on audio. I'm gonna make a quick breakfast, curl my hair, film the video, and then hopefully I can finish reading this afternoon. That would be great.
I thought it would kill me. I thought it would kill me to fall again. But I hit the ground running. So I didn't feel a single thing. My mind was occupied. Man, I was on a high. I could run forever to get a minute, just a minute of your time. If this is what it's like, I could get used to late nights dancing my face up.
Much later in the afternoon, and I have done so many things today. I did end up filming the video that I needed to film earlier today, and then I just decided to come down to the coffee shop to finish reading the book this afternoon because I just wanted to get out of the apartment and, you know, like have a change of scenery, have a scone, and it was great. I've been sitting in there for like the last 2 hours, and I'm excited to let you know that I just finished the Unwedding. Now I definitely understand why this book is getting lower reviews. Unfortunately, I get it now, and like, yikes. The ending of this book was such a hot mess, and like just the second half of this book in general. I saw a lot of people with like the main complaints about this book is that there are way too many characters, which I definitely agree with. I feel like even after the main like introduction to a lot of the characters in this book, there's still just like so many characters constantly getting introduced that are like characters that are involved with this wedding that I'm just like, bro, I don't care, and I can't keep track of all these different characters. And it sucks because I really liked the setup at the beginning, but I also just found the story to be kind of weird because I'm kind of like, I was questioning right from the beginning. I was like, why are we following this specific character's point of view when like she doesn't feel like she has that big of a part in the story, you know? Because this main girl, Ellery, that we're following, and then she makes friends with these two people, Ravi and Nina, like almost right away. But it's like these three people are not a part of the wedding party, and they don't really have anything to do with the wedding. They just happen to be staying at the same resort. And it's like they become so involved in this like investigation and like trying to figure out what happened to somebody that was in the wedding party who died. But it's like, why are they so invested? Like, why are they spending so much time trying to figure this out when like you don't even know these people actually? I guess I just found our main protagonist to be a little bit naive in the way that she would just trust people so easily. I also think like not only does the story really start to drag, but it also like takes this like whole side plot into this like art thing. Like there was this art piece that got stolen, and I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like, I'm sorry, like what? It was just so boring, and it took up a big part of the story around like the 60, like 50% mark. I know when anything, you know, gets compared to Agatha Christie, it's like, oh gosh, like here we go, you know, because I feel like most things that get compared to Agatha Christie end up not being that good. The only exception that I can think of is Daisy Darker. Like that's one of the only books that's been compared to Agatha Christie that I ended up really loving. I don't see the comparison to Agatha Christie at all. And it's not even so much as a like people start getting picked off one by one. It's not even that kind of vibe, like not really. I also think this book got a little bit like repetitive with the whole, you know, because our main character, she has this very mysterious past, right? And like there was an incident, there was something like an accident that happened in her past like 2 years ago, and she just brings it up every chance she gets. Like in her mind, it'll go into like italics, and then it'll just be like, I remember the scene and like the smell of the air and like things that were happening. But it takes so long for you as the reader to get the full story of like what really happened in this accident. And like at the end of the day, I was like, was all of that really necessary? Like it was not that big of a deal. Like it really wasn't that big of a deal for her to be bringing it up so often. Like it just didn't really change anything about her character or the story or like anything, you know? Like it was just like, okay, I guess because it didn't really like change anything about her character, or like I thought it was going to be a lot more dramatic of a thing that happened than what actually happened. And then to top it all off, the ending of this book, like the actual plot twists at the end are so ridiculous. And then I feel like not only were the plot twists just like not very good at the end of this, but then the ending just dragged on. Oh my god. By the time I was like reading the final plot twist, I was like, why is there still like an hour left on this audiobook? And then the ending just really drags on with like more explanations and more things and more reasoning, and you get everybody's backstory for like why they reacted it this way and why they did this. And I was like, okay, I don't care at this point. I just don't care anymore. So unfortunately, I think we have another 2-star on our hands. I know, it's just crazy. It's so unfortunate. It sucks that this vlog is going this way, especially because these first 2 books were books that I was very excited to read. But I had been hearing some mixed things about this one, so I wasn't sure how I was going to end up feeling about it. But I am pretty bummed that this one was not a win for me. Anyways, it's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think I'm going to go to the grocery store to pick up a few things just because I'm already out of a few things. Like, I don't know, the strawberries that I have and the avocados already went bad. Like, they go bad so quickly these days. I don't know if that's true for anybody else because I feel like usually avocados and strawberries, they should be like in season during the summertime, you know? So like usually they don't go bad that fast. But I feel like, gosh, I feel like I go to the grocery store now every like 4 or 5 days because all my freaking fruit goes bad so quickly now. Hello, it is the next afternoon and I wanted to update you because I've been listening to The Cliffs on audio. I'm 31% of the way through this audiobook right now, and somebody tell me why this audiobook is 15 hours long. It was kind of ridiculous, to be honest, because the prologue of the book was really long. Like, the prologue itself was 45 minutes long, and then like chapter 3 was over an hour long on the audiobook. So this book has some very, very long chapters. Like, this book has been very wordy so far. I hate to come on here and say this because I know it just seems like this reading vlog is not going very well, but I feel like this is another book that I'm getting the urge to DNF, and I think I'm gonna have to DNF this one. I'm honestly surprised that it's taken me this long to actually DNF a book for this vlog because I feel like with the other 2 books, even though I wasn't enjoying those books, I still wanted to finish them because those were books that I would have read on my own or that I already had on my TBR. Whereas like with this book, I was only picking up this book for this video. Like, I never had any real intention of wanting to read this book. So right now, reading this book is really feeling like a chore. I mean, even though I'm only 31% of the way in, I've been listening to this audiobook for 4 hours and 46 minutes. You know what does suck though about DNFing this one is that it did start off pretty interesting, and I was actually kind of invested in like the first 10% of this audiobook because the prologue of this book, the very long prologue, takes place like 10 years ago before the actual timeline of the story is taking place. We're following this character named Jane, who is a student. It's really cool because it takes place in Maine, and there's actually this like really old house that all of the characters are like obsessed with. The house is like completely abandoned and it's like kind of creepy, I guess. So it was like really interesting, like the descriptions of this house. I don't know why the beginning of this was almost giving me the vibes of like The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift. Like, I don't know why, but that's just the vibe and the feeling I was getting from the beginning of this. And then after the prologue, the story flashes forward to 10 years later, and we're following these other characters. We're following Genevieve and her husband Paul, and then she has a 4-year-old son named Benjamin. And then her son Benjamin is like saying that he's like seeing this woman in his bedroom, like he's seeing a ghost or something, and like that was really creepy. And like the first chapter was talking about how like, oh, they need to hire a medium because they are trying to like clear any kind of ghostly presence like out of the house. Like, I don't know, the vibes at the beginning were interesting, and I was like, you know, I know that this is not like a thriller or horror, like I know that that's not the direction that the story is going, but I was very intrigued by the whole like ghostly thing happening at the beginning. And so I was, you know, invested in the first 10%. I was like, okay, like maybe I would have never picked this book up on my own, but maybe it is gonna be interesting. But then I feel like very, very quickly this story just starts to go off in a direction that feels like a side tangent or something. I don't know, this is why I have such a love-hate relationship with some like historical fiction books or any books that are considered historical fiction, which I do think this one is considered historical fiction. But it's like a lot of times these books to me, they'll just feel like a history lesson, and I feel like this book is really starting to feel that way, where it's feeling very tedious, it's feeling very repetitive, and it's just nonstop history lessons about this area of Maine and like what's happened in their history there. You know, I can totally see why this would be like a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, because I do think that this book has a great message. I can see what it's trying to do. I agree with the message that that this book is trying to send and kind of showing like the uglier sides of history. Like I totally get that, but it's just starting to feel a little bit like textbook, you know? It's starting to feel kind of preachy, and like I already align with the beliefs that this author's preaching, so it's like it's not really teaching me anything new necessarily. This is just one of those books, I guess, where like I can see why this would work for other people. It's just really like not my taste in what I'm looking for in books. I'm not invested. Honestly, the thought of like picking up this book right now and continuing to listen to it is making me like not want to read at all, and like I don't want to get into a reading slump. And so I think this one is actually going to be a DNF from me. I don't see myself finishing this one. I feel like me listening to this audiobook for like 4 hours and 45 minutes. I've literally been listening to it all day. But it's just so crazy because I feel like this video is going in the same way that the last video I did of the Reese picks, where like the first 2 books, I'm pretty sure I gave those first 2 books 2 stars. The first 2 books in this video I also gave 2 stars, and then the third one was a DNF, which happened to me last time I did this. So I'm hoping that if this video does follow the same trend as it did last time, then the next read can be a 5-star, right? Because that's what ended up happening, was that like the whole video got saved because the last book that I read in that video was a 5-star. So, you know, I'm hoping, because my girl Rainbow Rowell, it was just announced, you know, as the August pick, and I've been so excited for Slow Dance, and so like I'm hoping that this book, what if it is a 5-star? Like that would be so great, and it would just make me feel so validated in like finishing out this Reese Witherspoon series if I do have another favorite. But like how weird that this video is going down the exact same path that the other one did. Like I didn't plan that shit. That's weird. Also, I wanted to show you because look at what I got in the mail. Oh my god, our friend Alicia, she's the one who makes like the bookmarks for Summerween. Like she is so freaking sweet and such an icon, and we got these shirts in the mail recently, and I was like, oh my god, like what? Like what is this, and who sent these? And she sent 3 shirts, one for me, one for Rachel, and one for Obed, because look at this. So it's like, you know, the Taylor Swift eras, but it's all Tank. And on here it says Tank's version. Like, dude, how cute is this? Oh my god. So now we have the eras with all the baby eras of Tank. Like, look at these. Oh my god, like how sweet of her to do this. So she sent us 3 different shirts, and like I can't believe it. It's so freaking cute. Like I just died, and I just had to show you because it just made my whole day, and it's so freaking cute. So thank you so much to Alicia for being so cool and for being such a real one. I'm really excited for tonight actually, because I'm gonna be going out to get dinner with my mom very soon here. We're gonna be going to this restaurant in like the downtown Bellingham area that I really like, and we're just gonna have a fun night hanging out with each other, and then hopefully tomorrow I can get started on the new Rainbow Rowell, because holy shit, I'm so excited.
So long gone, feels like I'm holding on forever. Nothing's wrong. I should be.
Hey, hello, I wanted to update you. It is the next afternoon and I have started reading Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell. I just exactly hit page 100 and I was like, okay, well, I need to update you because things are happening. I actually jumped into this story without knowing anything about what it's about, and I only wanted to pick it up because it's Rainbow Rowell. You know, like I will literally read anything that she writes. And so I didn't really know that this is actually a romance book. Like part of me was thinking it was just gonna be more like contemporary fiction and like about friendship, but I think it actually is a romance book, or at least when I looked on Goodreads, like that's the first genre that's listed as romance. So I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm starting to realize that I think it's kind of like a second chance romance, or like a friends to lovers type of romance, which honestly is usually not my kind of thing. Like usually with romances, I much prefer like, you know, the more angsty kind of romance, like the forbidden, like the enemies to lovers. Usually I don't really like the like friends to lovers or second chance romances, but this has been such a delight so far. We're basically following these 2 characters named Shiloh and Carrie, and like back in high school, they went to high school together, and like everybody always thought that they were gonna end up together, but like they never got together. And of course, in like typical Rainbow Rowell fashion, this book takes place in Omaha, Nebraska, which is like where all of her books take place. I don't know if it's because all of her books take place in Nebraska, but like there's something about this setting that always just makes her books feel so cozy. Like there's just something so cozy about her writing style. So something that I'm liking about like the writing of this story is that we're going back and forth in time. So the story actually takes place in the present day, because I say present day because it's 2006. So 2006 is the timeline that we're following that's like more in the present day. And then we do get flashbacks to like when these characters were in high school together. But what's interesting is that now in the present day chapters that are taking place in 2006, they haven't talked to each other in like 14 years. So like it's been a long time that they haven't really spoken to each other, and so there's a lot of history there and a lot of tension between them. But usually like the thing that bothers me about second chance romances is when you don't actually get to see the history that's between the couple, because I find it really hard to like root for a couple when I don't see like the history between them. But that's what I am really loving about this writing so far, is because we do get like the flashback chapters of like when they were friends in high school, and we kind of get to see like some of their history that made them who they are. Gosh, dude, this is just reading so beautifully. Like I just love Rainbow Rowell's writing. It's like this woman just like lives in my head, and she like verbalizes things that I don't know how to even say that out loud. I don't know why. I feel like I really am connecting with this protagonist, with Shiloh, as like the main character, because I feel like Rainbow Rowell, she's so good at writing those characters who were just like a little bit anxious about things and like a little bit of an overthinker about like every little thing that you're doing. And the way she just writes about like humans and like relationships, it's just so relatable. Like I'm just immediately connecting with the writing, and I'm immediately falling in love with these characters. Like I just love the way that she writes her characters. I think another reason why I'm loving this so much is because I am listening to this on audio, and the audiobook is narrated by Rebecca Lohman, who is the same audiobook narrator as Fangirl. And because, you know, I've reread Fangirl like so many times, it's like literally my most reread book of all time, and I've listened to that audiobook so many times, like there is something about this woman's voice that is like extremely comforting to me. And so in a way, it does kind of feel like I'm rereading Fangirl for some reason. I mean, these characters are not exactly like Kath and Levi, but I can definitely see a lot of similarities to Kath and Levi from Fangirl with these characters. And I'm just like, oh, I'm in love. I'm loving it so much. I've already started tabbing like a bunch of different things just because there's been so many quotable moments that I want to come back to. Again, mostly like with this main character just being so relatable just with the way she talks about things. I also just love exploring this relationship between these two and how they, you know, came to be such close friends in the first place. But then also how like they both struggle with intimacy like really a lot in their lives, and I'm just already rooting for their relationship, whether that eventually does lead to romance or whether that just strengthens their friendship. Like I don't know, but I'm already obsessed with these two characters, and I'm just so happy about this. Like I'm so happy to be loving this book. You have no idea. I was just really hoping, you know, with Rainbow Rowell, it's been so long since she's published something, you know, and it is so refreshing to read something like this. I've missed Rainbow Rowell's writing style. There's something about her writing style, I don't know how to explain it. It just feels very cozy and very comforting, and I feel very seen by her characters. It's something that I don't really know how to put into words why I love her writing so much, but I feel like if you've ever read Rainbow Rowell's books in the past, you'll probably understand what I'm talking about with the writing style. If you're a fan of her books, like there's just something very specific about her writing style that is so comforting, and it really works for me. Holy shit, this is going so well. I'm very happy about it, especially after the way that this vlog has been going. Like I am so happy to be reading a book that feels like it could be a 5-star. Like I don't want to jinx it, but I'm having great feelings towards this book already. Anyways, it's just about that time. It is dinner time. Rachel and Obed are out of the apartment, so I have the place to myself for a few hours. I think I'm going to feed Tank, and then I need to figure out like what I want to make for dinner. I'm not totally sure what I want to do. Good morning. It is the next day, and I wanted to update you because I've still been reading Slow Dance. I wanted to update you because I just hit page 212, and I'm probably just gonna try to finish reading this today, and I wanted to update you before that happens because I'm still loving it so freaking much. I just love these characters. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like so many people would read this book and be like, yeah, I mean, it's fine, but like nothing really happens. And like, yeah, you might be right. There was this moment that I just really loved where this character, Shiloh, sometimes the things that she says, she reminds me so much of Kath from Fangirl. There was this quote where it says, Shiloh didn't like anyone. Like mathematically speaking, the percentage of people that Shiloh met and then liked was too close to 0 to be statistically significant. Like, I love that. And also relate, like same. There's also just something about Carrie's character, like some of the things he says or like some of his mannerisms mannerisms. He does remind me so much of Levi from Fangirl, like I'm not gonna lie. He feels like an adult grown-up version of Levi in so many ways, and I'm just like loving that about this. There was also a moment last night when I was reading this one part when I was making my dinner, and it was like this one scene that involved one of these characters' moms, and like dude, that scene literally almost made me like burst into tears. It was just something about the way that it was written, and I just like immediately felt connected to that character, and I was like, oh my god, it just made me feel so sad that I almost like burst into tears like the second I read it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm loving it so fucking much. I'm only like a little bit more than 50%. I'm 57% of the way through the audiobook, so I still do have a little ways left to go. This book is almost 400 pages. It's like about 390 pages, but I'm hoping to finish up the rest of it today because I am just I'm loving it so much. I'm so happy to let you know that this was 5 stars for me. I mean, let me preface this by saying, like, do I think that this is the best book of the year? No. Do I think this is gonna make it into like my top 10 books of the year? Probably not. Did I enjoy this book more than Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell? No. And did this story go on for a little bit too long? Yes, I think it did. It was actually around like the 80% mark of this book where I started to look at the audiobook and I was like, why do I still have like almost 20% of the book left? Because it really started to feel like things were wrapping up. But this is still 5 stars because of the way that it made me feel, oh my god, and the way that I just connected to these characters. Dude, there's just something about Rainbow Rowell's writing, I don't know how to explain it. It's like she's like tied into my brain. It's like she writes characters who feel like such real human beings. And I just love the way that Rainbow Rowell writes her romances, because I feel like her romances are very quiet and very subtle, and they're very much like a slow burn. But I just feel like these characters just feel very real to me. Like, I feel like so often my issue with a lot of romance books is that once the characters start to get together or start to get intimate with each other, it's like they start to like lose their personalities during the sex scenes. Especially, I feel like sometimes characters like, or the sex scenes just get so like over the top and like sexual, and I feel like so oftentimes that really like turns me off from most romance books because it feels very like unrealistic to me. But I love the way that these characters are just so themselves at all times. I do love the fact that, you know, Shiloh is a bit of like an anxious person, you know, she's a bit of an overthinker, and I also love that she's kind of like cynical in her own ways. Like, she's not annoying about it, at least not to me, because I feel like I connect to her so much that I really just feel like I understand her. But then I do love how Carrie is kind of like the reverse of that. Like, I feel like he's like a really positive kind of like puppy dog energy almost, where like he can really like lift her spirits. They almost kind of have that like grumpy sunshine thing going on with each other, where she's a little bit more grumpy and he's a little bit more sunshine. And I've always preferred the dynamic of that, because I don't know, I always get annoyed in romances with the grumpy and sunshine trope if it's the guy who's grumpy and the girl who's sunshine, because I feel like that's so overdone, and it's like I just see that all the time. But I appreciate one like this where it's like the girl is a little bit more grumpy and then he's more sunshine. Like, that tends to be like my favorite romance trope if you're gonna have that trope. But like, god, I just love this. Like, I can't believe that I loved this second chance romance. Like, I'm telling you, I never loved this trope in romance books, but if anybody was gonna make me love this trope, I swear it's Rainbow Rowell, dude. I especially loved all the talk in this book about like how much you can change as a person from the time that you're a teenager until like you're in your 30s, you know. And like right now I'm 29, I'm literally gonna be 30 in like 4 months, and so I feel like I'm at that age where like I'm starting to see a huge difference in my behavior of like how I was as a teenager versus how I am now as an adult. But I just love those conversations she was having when, you know, she talks about how like, oh, please don't remember me how I was in high school, you know, because like I used to be so confident back then, and like you really thought like you had your life figured out, you know, when you were only like 18 years old. Like, you thought you knew everything at that age. And it's like crazy where it's like, where did all this anxiety come from? Where did all this self-doubt come from? Like, is that just part of like growing up? It kind of reminded me of like my love for the Taylor Swift song Nothing New, when she says, how can a person know everything everything at 18 but nothing at 22. It's like when you're 18, you feel like you're on top of the world, you just graduated, you feel like you know everything and you have your whole life ahead of you. But then all of a sudden, like, you realize how hard it is to actually grow up and mature and become an adult, and then all this like real life anxiety starts to like set in, you know? I also just adored too like the descriptions of each other, because we do kind of get like Carrie's perspective in this and Shiloh's perspective in this, so we kind of get to see like how they both view each other. But I love the fact that with Rainbow Rowell, she's never writing about people that are like super, you know, like conventionally attractive. You can tell that she's just writing about like two very normal people. I do love the way that she describes Carrie at this one point when she said Carrie's eyes were kind of small and pouchy, his chin was pointy, his top lip was thin, his face didn't sound nice when you broke it up into parts, but it was nice altogether and she liked looking at him. I was like, dude, that literally sounds like Kathryn Levi. Like, that sounds like the way that she describes Levi. Like, yeah, he has a receding hairline and his forehead is way too big and his smile is just overwhelming, but like him as a person is just beautiful, you know, like it's something about him that's just so comforting. I literally tabbed so many different moments where there were just so many beautiful quotes and also like relatable quotes. Like, there was a few relatable quotes that almost like took me out in the same way that Fangirl does, where I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know how to vocalize that, but that's exactly how I've felt about things. There was specifically a whole paragraph on page 278 when they were doing this like emailing thing back and forth. What Shiloh said in her email to him, I was like, dude, yeah, that is perfectly said. I feel the exact same way. And I don't want to read it out loud just in case there might be some spoilery things because it's a little bit later on in the book, but like, damn. And that's such a rare feeling to have with books. So like, holy shit, I can't believe we have a 5-star. It's so crazy and weird and wild to me that this vlog ended up going the exact same way as round 1 that I did earlier this year, where like I gave the first 2 books around 2 stars, the 3rd book was a DNF, 4th book was a 5-star. Like, what is going on, dude? So if the formula stays the same, then I should hate the next 2 Reese Witherspoon book club picks and then DNF in November, and then maybe I'll love the December pick. I don't want to discourage you from reading this book, but I don't think that this is going to be a book that's like super widely loved by everyone, you know? Unless you're just a really big fan of Rainbow Rowell and her writing style and you know that about yourself, then I think you would love this. But I think generally speaking, I don't know if this is going to be like a big mass appeal to a ton of readers, because it is a very quiet, kind of like subtle, slow burn kind of romance, and it's more about the characters, I think, than it is about the plot. But if that sounds right up your alley, then like I definitely recommend checking this one out because I loved it and it was a 5-star for me. I can't believe we've made it to the end of another one of these videos, so thank you so much for watching. At this point in time, I am planning to do the next round, which will be the last video of this year in December, where I'm going to be reading the September, October, November, and December book club picks for Reese Witherspoon's book club, so hopefully she starts picking some books in these upcoming months that will be amazing and will be right up my alley, because so far I've only really loved 2 out of the 8 so far, so that's like not very good odds. But you know, at this point I am fully committed to this video series for the rest of this year, so let me know if you've read any of the books that I read during this video. Let me know what you think about them, and thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!